What if you found a text written 1400 years ago that seemed to contain scientific knowledge we've only discovered in the last 100 years? Now, for this analysis, let's be clear. We're setting aside faith, we're setting aside personal beliefs, we're just going to look at the data. We're treating this as a historical text that contains some remarkable scientific descriptions that shouldn't really be there.
And that brings us to the big question, right? What are the actual odds that a book from the 7th century could nail descriptions of 21st century science? We're going to look at things from cosmology, embryology, metallurgy, stuff that was confirmed over 1,000 years later. Our whole approach here is going to be about evidence and probability, nothing else.
So how are we going to do this? Simple. We're going to treat the Quran like a data set. We're going to pull out specific, testable claims and look at them as individual data points. And each one of these points existed centuries before we ever had the technology to verify it. That's the 1400-year-old anomaly we're here to investigate.
All right, let's dive right in. Our first data point takes us all the way back to the beginning of, well, everything, the cosmos. We're talking about the origin of the entire universe.
Okay, so the text describes the heavens and the earth as a joined entity that was then separated. Now, that specific phrasing is what's so fascinating here. It really seems to be suggesting a single, unified origin point for everything in the universe.
And check out this timeline. This is where the anomaly really hits you. The verse is from the 7th century. But the Big Bang Theory, the idea it seems to perfectly describe, wasn't even proposed until 1927. And the smoking gun evidence for it? That didn't come until 1965. We're talking a 1,300-year gap between the text and the science.
But here's the kicker. It's the precision of the actual Arabic words used. Ratkin means a fused, joined-together mass. I mean, that's an incredible parallel to the scientific concept of the singularity. And fataknahuma means to split or tear them apart, which is just a powerful, dead-on description of the Big Bang itself. This isn't just vague poetry, it's a very descriptive account.
Okay, so from the biggest thing imaginable, the universe, let's zoom all the way into the microscopic world of human development. Time for our second data point, inner space? So this verse lays out this clear, step-by-step progression of how a human develops inside the womb. And you've got to pay close attention to the specific technical-sounding terms it uses for each stage, words like Alaqah and mudga. And boom, there it is again, the time gap. This kind of detail was completely impossible to see in the 7th century. I mean, the microscope wouldn't be invented for another 1,000 years. And the really accurate staging of these phases, that's a 20th century achievement. Okay, this is where it gets really wild. That one word, Alaqah, isn't just one thing. It's like a scientific hat trick. It has 3 different meanings that are all simultaneously scientifically correct for that exact stage of the embryo. It looks like a leech, it hangs or is suspended from the uterine wall, and it's related to blood. One word, 3 precise scientific descriptions.
All right, on to data point number 3. This one explores things that are basically invisible or impossible to get to without some serious technology. And we're going to start with the very elements our world is made of.
Now, the wording here is incredibly specific. It says sent down. The text doesn't say iron was created on Earth or formed in the ground. It explicitly states it was sent down.
And wouldn't you know it, the science to back that up only shows up 13 centuries later. Modern astrophysics has confirmed that the element iron is not native to Earth. It's forged in the insane heat of giant stars that go supernova. That means every single atom of iron on this planet is extraterrestrial. It was, quite literally, sent down.
And just in case you think we're stretching the meaning of sent down, the actual Arabic word used is anzalna, and that word leaves no room for doubt. It implies a descent from a higher place. It doesn't use words that mean created or formed from the earth. The language points directly to a cosmic origin, perfectly matching what we know today.
Okay, at this point, I know what you're probably thinking. This is all just a big coincidence, right? A series of really, really lucky guesses? It's the most logical question to ask. So, let's try to calculate those odds. Let's just tackle that criticism head on. The biggest counterargument is that we're just engaging in hindsight bias, that we're reading our modern science back into an old, vague text. And you know what? That's a completely fair point to consider. So the main objections usually fall into these 3 camps. We're projecting meaning onto ambiguous verses, we're cherry-picking the stuff that fits while ignoring what doesn't, and we're trying to treat a religious book like it's a science textbook. All valid points that we have to consider. But we can actually test this just by thinking about probability. So, one match, the Big Bang, for instance. Okay, you could argue that's a coincidence, a lucky guess. But when you add a second, totally unrelated match, like embryology, the odds of that being a coincidence drop dramatically. The thing is, the dataset doesn't stop there. There are dozens of these claims across geology, oceanography, biology. The real strength of the argument isn't in any single point, but in the cumulative weight of all of them together.
So if we decide that coincidence is just statistically improbable, we're left with a really tough question. What actually explains this data?
And this is the core of the anomaly. This is the real puzzle. The historical context makes all of this information seem impossible. We're talking about a 7th century desert community, centuries before the invention of the telescopes, microscopes, or submarines needed to even begin thinking about these concepts. So you see, the question really isn't, can we find ways to interpret these verses scientifically? No. The far more fundamental and, frankly, more interesting question is this. What is the origin of this information? How did it get into a 7th century text in the first place?
Ultimately, this is the challenge this anomaly presents. The data points, the verses themselves, they exist. The modern scientific facts that seem to align with them are settled. The timeline is not in dispute. The only variable left on the table is the explanation for how any of this is possible. And that, well, that's a question worth thinking about.